Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Outside the Playbook. I'm Josh.
I'm Ryan.
Today we're going to be talking about the NBA offseason. We're going to start with the Central Division, looking ahead to season 2021-22. Defending champs, Milwaukee Bucks. They got the job done. I'm not going to hold you out. Thought Phoenix had everything under control after the first two games, but they did what they've been doing throughout the playoffs, proving the doubters wrong. I'm pretty sure that almost every single round they picked against the Bucks, if I'm not mistaken. Starting with Miami and so on and so forth. But they pulled it out. They had a uneventful offseason. It's one of those things where if it's not broke, you don't want to fix it per se. Let's look at the pickups that they had. They picked up Rodney Hood. Somebody, I feel like he hasn't really gotten a fair shake since he left Utah. 6'8", long, lengthy, decent defender, but once he gets scoring, once he gets into a rhythm, he's a pretty decent off the bench scorer for you. Can be spark off the bench. They picked up George Hill. They went and got Ojale from Boston. But you lose PJ Tucker, all right? Probably one of the biggest losses on that team. You miss a versatile defender, quarter shooter. He's getting older, around 37, 38, but he's still very valuable, as you can see throughout the NBA playoffs, being able to guard James Harden, Kevin Durant, Jason Tatum, some of the bigger forwards. He plays power forward. Normally, if you were on the opposite side, you would see him guarding Giannis. You put him on a team with Giannis, that strengthens your defensive capabilities with Drew Holiday, Chris Middleton, like I said, Giannis, PJ Tucker, and you have Brook Lopez. Sometimes you have Portis in there with him, but you lose that. You send that to Miami. He gives them the same sort of punch. Do you think this is enough for them to go back to back?
I think one of the reasons, if they had kind of ran into a fully healthy Nets team, I'm not necessarily sure Milwaukee would have came out of that. A crippled Nets team took them to Game 7.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that they were
tippy-toe away from actually losing that game with KD's foot on the line when he hit that shot. So, you're right.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you talk about you barely get past that team, and I look at the moves that the Bucks made during the offseason, and I don't think they got better. I think they kind of, if anything, they lost some tenacity on the defensive end with PJ Tucker. Who's going to be the one now to guard, the best scorer on the other side? Yeah. Maybe Giannis, perhaps, But I think they took a major loss defensively. I do think that Rodney Hood and George Hill give a nice, extra punch off the bench. But Milwaukee's bench has never really been a problem, I would say, per se, in recent years. They've always had like a pretty decent bench that could be depended upon if need be. So I would argue maybe they could have taken a little bit of a step back, possibly, definitely on the defensive end, but I don't see them going back to back, not if everybody is healthy in the Eastern Conference. I see them definitely making it back probably to the Eastern Conference final, but I'm not necessarily picking them to come out of the East next year, again, assuming everybody there is healthy.
And that's one thing, too. Everybody, like you said, everybody's healthy now. Brooklyn's healthy. Miami's healthy. We don't know what's going to happen with Philly, but I imagine Boston's getting back to full stream. Even though they lost Kemba Walker to the Knicks are going to be a tough team as well. Even though they lost him, I still think they're going to be just fine. Jason Tatum, he looks like he's going to come back stronger. So, the road back is going to be tough. Would I just count them out right off the bat and say the Bucks don't have a chance? Not really, but like I said, you lose Tucker to your Eastern Conference rival. And a team that, when healthy, they do have your number in Miami. So, it's not looking good for the Bucks, especially if this is all they're going to do this offseason. But, Giannis will be Giannis. Middleton will be Middleton. So I look forward to a very competitive Eastern Conference journey for the Bucks, but maybe not repeat. I do expect to see Giannis probably in the MVP discussion once again. I mean, back-to-back MVPs. He doesn't get it this year, but I do believe he was in the top 5. I look to see him hovering around that same area. I know there's going to be a lot of teams in the Eastern Conference that have MVP candidates, and Giannis is going to have to beat them all just to get back to the NBA Finals. So, I mean, defending champs, 46-26. They led the pack in the Central Division. Not much of a threat to their throne. I do see them repeating as division champs. Looking on to the Indiana Pacers, they signed Torrey Craig. They re-signed TJ McConnell. I like McConnell as a backup point guard. Probably one of my favorite backups. Very intelligent, very smart. Plays at a different pace than everybody else. He's pretty quick, pretty fast, but he's always under control. He likes to get his teammates involved. He's that secondary facilitator because a lot of times in the starting lineup, they do play through Sabonis. They do use him as a post threat, scorer and passer out of the double team. So, as a guard off the bench, he's one of the perfect backup point guards in the league. You do lose Aaron Holiday. You lose Doug McDermott. He's a up-and-coming shooter. He struggled the first couple seasons in his league when he was in Chicago. But I do see him coming on strong. He's going to be under Popovich now. So I look to see him making more of a splash in the three-point marksmanship this coming season. You lose Jakar Sampson, a fiery player. He kind of reminds me of the same punch that Portis has given to the Bucks, and then what he gave to the Bulls a few years back. But that fiery player, energetic. He gets people going. He gets the crowd into it. Makes those hustle plays. Gets on the glass. But I think the biggest thing for this team is the hiring of Rick Carlisle. Now, I didn't agree with them when they fired. His name forgets.
Nate McMillan.
They fired Nate McMillan. Yep, fired him after extending his contract a few years ago. They bring a new guy in, fire him at the end of the season, and then you bring in Rick Carlisle. Now, he does have a very successful track record in the league. He's been coaching for as long as I can remember, since like the early 2000s, and he's been successful at every stop, has a Coach of the Year award, has a championship under his belt. He's bringing that to the Indiana Pacers with what they have left. I do look to see them be more of a defensive-oriented team. You can see that just by the signing of Torrey Craig. I do believe they still have TJ Warren. They have Miles Turner. They have Sabonis. So if you can build on that, you're in decent position to make a run to get into the playoffs. But I don't see anything beyond that. In my opinion, they're hovering around the bottom of this division along with the Cleveland Cavaliers, and we'll touch on them in a minute. But the biggest deal right here is hiring Rick Carlisle. You have a new head coach in place that has a winning championship pedigree, similar to what the Pistons did with Dwayne Casey. Get an experienced guy in there, get a head of the snake, if you will, in place, and then you just build on from there. So I guess they're heading in the right direction, but we'll see how they draft in the next couple of years and what they decide to do. If they decide to move on from Miles Turner, get rid of his contract, or send him on to another team and get some draft picks in his place. But like I said, Rick Carlisle was the biggest off-season move for the Pacers. The Chicago Bulls.
Quick note about Indiana before we move. I do agree that Rick Carlisle is probably the most significant move. I also like TJ McConnell. I think I liked him back when he was in Philly. He's a type of player that just really stays in his lane, just knows what he does well and sticks to it, and doesn't try to kind of venture out too far into where his strength isn't at. And so I think that's the main reason why I do like him as a backup point guard and facilitator. So I do agree. I don't necessarily see Indiana doing anything major, or substantial. I think I would probably say, I would guess they'll probably get into the playoffs, but I'm not necessarily putting them, higher than maybe a 7 or an 8 seed. So not really looking for a deep playoff run. Maybe they make it, they go out in the first round. But we'll see. But I do agree they're probably hovering, more so closer to the bottom of their respective division.
Yeah, that playing game, it's made for teams like the Pacers. They're probably going to be in the 9th and 10th spot, and it's a wait and see what happens type of thing with them. I was a little bit anxious. You caught me before I moved on, but I was anxious to get to the Chicago Bulls. Out of all the teams in this division, I think this might be my favorite to watch. Now, they were one of my favorite teams to watch even before all these deals were made. I like the way they played the game, especially with Zach LaVine and Kobe White in that backcourt last year. Very, very explosive team. But now you add in Lonzo Ball to the mix. Now, people have been talking about his jump shot, talking about all the stuff his dad was saying and how hyped he was coming in. Listen, that's a thing of the past, because last year he was knocking down open shots. He was facilitating. He was putting people in a position to score. He was putting his team in a position to win the basketball game. He was a great floor general, up and down game. He was the perfect point guard for the Pelicans, and how they let him walk, I have no idea. But, man, you put him in the backcourt with Zach LaVine, okay? You bring in DeRozan. Mid-range is on Hall of Fame badge, okay? He's automatic from that mid-range area. And when he was playing with Greg Popovich in San Antonio, they really got him into the facilitator role. They started getting him 5, 6, 7 assists on a regular basis, which really wasn't his game in Toronto. It was more so ISO ball. He catches the ball. He's looking to score. Now he's a better facilitator. Now he's more of a move the ball around, and then once the ball comes back to me, I'm able to get right into my spot and make my move versus eating up the shot clock. You have Derrick Jones Jr. I miss him in Miami so much. The best high flyer in the league, but he's an underrated defender and an underrated knockdown three-point shooter. He's not going to hit, 4 or 5, but he's going to hit the three-point shot when he's wide open in the corner on the wing. He can knock it down. You add Stanley Johnson to, I believe he's on a training camp contract. I don't know, but even then, you add Stanley Johnson. You traded for Vucevic last season. Didn't get to see much of him and LaVine together, but Vucevic is a very good post-up player. He can knock down the outside shot. A 20 and 10 on a regular basis type player that they needed in the post. Marketing wasn't really getting it done, so I don't think you're going to miss him much being gone. But you also add Alex Caruso. Everybody, I feel like he's probably a fan favorite throughout the entire league. Everybody, whenever you watch him, you can't wait for him to do the little headband when he hit the three. I mean, everybody loves Caruso. So they have added some significant pieces to this team. Now, granted, you lose Aminu, Markkanen, Satoransky, Tice, Temple, Young, and Valentine. But if you look at the other side, you pick up pieces that are just as good, or if not better or more important to your team. And I mean, I can't forget, you still got Williams, and you still got a couple other young players in the mix. You still got Kobe White. You got Wendell Carter Jr. This team is built for the playoffs. This is one of those teams that you can go deep. You don't have to worry about cutting your roster off at that 8-9 player mark. If you get this team running like a well-oiled machine, if you get them into the playoffs, you can wear some teams down. If you're playing, from the bottom, looking up at the top seeds like the Nets, Bucks, Heat, Sixers, Celtics, and you need a lot more pace to the game, you have endless possibilities with this roster.
Absolutely. I'd say out of all the teams that we're talking about in this Central Division, I think the Bulls probably made the most significant moves, and I'm also interested to see what they look like. I really did like Lonzo coming to the Bulls and just what he brings as a true point guard, facilitator, floor general. Yeah. Obviously, we've seen what we get in terms of scoring from Zach LaVine. I mean, I'm pretty much expecting that same type of scoring output from him. But then you also add an additional scorer to the squad in the form of DeMar DeRozan too. So it's like you kind of add, from an offensive standpoint, you add that other weapon there too. So I think they're going to be really good offensively. I think it's going to be interesting to see what they look like defensively, though. I think that on the defensive side of the ball, I feel like that will be the side that kind of makes or breaks them. So I think more to come, and we'll see what they look like. But I think offensively, they certainly improved. I think they improved overall from where they were, last year. So I certainly expect them to be a playoff team. I'm not sure where to put them as far as seeding goes. But with the level of talent that they've got, there's no reason why they can't, get into the playoffs. Probably at least go to the second round, I would say.
I say 5, 6, or 7 between Chicago and New York, hanging around that area. But talking about defense, I mean, Billy Donovan is their coach. When he was the coach at Florida, they were known for being the best, year in and year out, being one of the best defensive teams. He gets to OKC, one of the best defensive teams in the league. So he has a track record of coaching defense. He may not always have the best pieces, but he does coach pretty good defensive setups. But you also, you can't forget, all the things that Lonzo brings to offense. He's just as talented on the defensive end. He's going to pick you up 94 feet. Not many guards can do that, but at 6'6", long arms, intelligence, he has the ability to do that. Alex Caruso, he's a pest. DeRozan, underrated defender, not known for it, but he can play team defense. Derrick Jones Jr., you're going to see him at times on the best offensive player on the opposite side of the ball. The question is, are you going to get the leader of your team in Zach LaVine to buy in defensively? That's what remains to be seen because, you do lose Young and Aminu, two very important defensive players on your team. So you want to see Zach LaVine kind of take on that challenge of being one of the better defenders on his own team. Now switching gears though, I'm going to skip your team. I'm going to skip your team and I'm going to save them for last. We're going to go straight to the Cleveland Cavaliers.
The best for last.
You know what? I can't even knock them. They had a good offseason. Listen, we're going to skip straight to the Cavs, all right? We just got through talking about the Bulls and how they lost marketing. Cavs got him in a sign and trade. They also traded for Ricky Rubio. That move alone doesn't make sense. You have Darius Garland. You have Colin Sexton. You add in Rubio. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you drafted another point guard or shooting guard. Don't know what the Cleveland Cavaliers are doing. I do believe they also picked up Taco Fall for a training camp deal. You re-signed Jared Allen, which is probably Jared Allen and marketing might be okay together, but the only problem is the Cavs didn't lose anybody important. Which brings me to my next point is they still have Kevin Love on their roster. Kevin Love is set to make, I believe, $65 million over the next 2 seasons. He's still eating off that max contract that LeBron got him when Kyrie took off. So Kevin Love is making a enormous amount of money to do very little for this Cavaliers organization. There's a lot of teams that could use his services that actually need him. Why on earth are they keeping him? I know he's being smart and saying, I'm not taking a buyout. I want the full 65. Okay. Find somebody that'll take his contract on a team that needs him. If there's teams calling and saying, hey, we'll trade you for him, make the deal. Get draft picks, get a younger player, get somebody in there that you can build around or build with for the next couple seasons, or just buy the man out. He's not gonna leave. I can't imagine him leaving. Like I said, he has $65 million over the next 2 years estimated. I can't see him leaving more than 15, 20 on the table. So just give him the money and let him walk. You're not going anywhere fast in the next couple years, especially if you're thinking about the playoffs. That should not even be on your agenda right now. We know for a fact that you're not. And the way I look at it is, this is just karma for all the stuff that Dan Gilbert said about LeBron in the news when LeBron left from Miami. This is all karma. They're not going to go anywhere anytime soon because he opened his mouth about somebody he ain't had no business opening his mouth in that manner. So looking at their present situation, like I said, you have marketing, you have Allen. Don't need Rubio, ship him to another team or pair him and Kevin Love up and ship them to a contender. And the way superstars and former stars and all-stars are linking up and going to championship caliber teams, there should be no shortage of teams looking for Kevin Love's services. In particular, I think he fits great next to Joel Embiid. He's not the Kevin Kevin Love of old that is going to give you 20 points, 20 rebounds, or anything like that. But he can knock down a wide open shot every now and then. It probably helps spread the floor for Joel Embiid to operate in the paint. If you get rid of Simmons, I've seen a lot of teams jockeying for position to get him. There's so many different dominoes that can be affected if you just let Kevin Love walk.
Yeah, I agree. I think, like you said, Kevin Love is not Kevin Love of Minnesota, but he's still a contributor. If on the right team, and he's a guy that will definitely embrace his role. We don't talk as much lately about his shooting, but I mean, he's still solid 3-point shooter. So I do agree he can go to Philly. Any team really that needs some floor spacing, folks to be able to knock down the open shot, like you said. But yeah, I mean, from an intelligence standpoint, right? Kevin Love is better. In his mind, I'm sure he's like, let me stay collect the money. But yeah, the Cavaliers are not the Cavaliers of LeBron's era of actually
they're
making
not even the Cavaliers of before LeBron's era. Like nobody cares about this team
anywhere. They're not doing anything. So it's like, yeah, if you're going to have a player of Kevin Love's caliber, then why do you keep him just knowing that he's not going to have to do much of anything because your organization is not going very far. So I agree. If you can either let him walk, buy him out, or try to get some younger players, just try to continue on more of like a rebuild type of path. And then get some young talent and start building up the Cavs team that way. Like I said, I don't see the Cavs making any type of impact in the Eastern Conference anytime soon, within the next few years, barring, they get the number 1 draft pick at some point, maybe in a couple years or whatever. But
possibly.
Other than that, it's possible. But other than that, I don't see, the Cavaliers making any type of splashes anytime soon.
It's just the lack of intelligence that I see from that organization on a continued basis. I mean, you have Colin Sexton. I seen him in trade rumors as soon as the season ended. He was your best player the entire season. Literally your best player, night in and night out. Oh, what are you doing? I mean, I seen his name pop up, and I'm not kidding, maybe within a half hour, Miami, Golden State, the Lakers, Portland, everybody was on it. As soon as there was even a whiff that they might be getting rid of him. Because first of all, he's still on his rookie deal. Second of all, he's a threat at that point guard position. There's a lot of point guards that go head to head with him. He can hold his own to a degree on a nightly basis against some of the better point guards in the league. I mean, he can give you 25 and 5 or 25 and 5, something around that range, and still shoot. I think he shot 47% this past season and nearly 38% from the 3-point line, something around that ballpark. But that's still pretty good numbers for a second-year player on a bad team. Because 9 times out of 10 on a bad team, you're going to shoot a lot of shots and you're not going to be efficient at all. You're just getting up shots and making numbers on a poor team. And so, the fact that he's still productive, you don't want to waste those productive years just hanging on to Kevin Love, trading for older guys in the league like Ricky Rubio. I mean, you can make the excuse that, he's a good locker room guy or he can mentor, but that's not what you need right now. You need pieces. Okay. If you have the pieces, then you can maybe think later on down the road adding a veteran here and there. But I mean, they really don't have a blueprint for what they're doing in the near future. So, I mean, Cavs going Cav, right? Talking about
they need a sense of direction. So, just the last thing I'll say about that is I was surprised by that as well. And especially when you think of how young Colin Sexton is, it's like he can, he's got a lot of potential. He can only get better. Mm-hmm. And so, why give up on him this soon? And he has a track record of improving since he's come into the league. So to get rid of him at this point, I mean, if you're going to think about that, at least give it another couple of years and then see what you might be able to get for him. But any significant dealing of him in my opinion, would definitely be too soon before we see what he could really look like as he continues to mature in the league.
Yeah. Ah, well, on to the Pistons. All right.
On to the best team in
Um,
this conversation.
I will have to say this now. I'm always hard on Detroit. A lot of tough, not a lot of love. Um, I gotta say I respect what they did this offseason. I respect it a lot, and I'm going to go to Detroit Pistons game, and I might be going to actually see the Detroit Pistons. They lost Dumbayo. Okay, I'm a little iffy on that move because he was a good young piece. They lost Ellington. They lost Okafor. They lose Plumlee. They lose Dennis Smith Jr., which I don't really think they lost him. I mean, they weren't really using him as much anyways. Um, but I do like what they gained out of it. They draft Cade Cunningham. You add him to the backcourt with Killian Hayes. You draft the listen. How do you let the National Player of the Year fall to the 52nd pick? Now, in most cases, that's bad luck for Detroit, right? Most cases, Detroit's the team that's passing this up. The 52nd pick in the second round, you draft Luka Garza, probably one of my favorite college players from last season, the way he was doing numbers. Excuse me. And then you get Trey Lyles. You add a former Miami Heat player. I was complaining about him a lot because he wasn't playing it to his full potential. He was making some bonehead plays at bonehead times, but I do got love for Kelly Olynyk. I got a lot of love for Olynyk. He's one of the league leaders in charges taken as well. So he's a good rim protector, just not how we're traditionally used to seeing it. And they also re-signed Diallo. So what do you got for the Detroit Pistons this coming season? What do you think that you're going to see from them?
I will say this: I'm excited. I'm very excited.
Yeah, I bet.
I liked everything that they did. I mean, with Luka Garza, I mean, if the summer league is any indication, I think the Pistons they've got some really nice young pieces. Cunningham did really well. Took him like a game or two just to kind of get his footing underneath him a little bit. But once he found his stride, you can tell that there was a little bit of a change in his confidence level. And then, Garza, I think he performed better than even what I thought he was going to. So I like what they did. We've got a nice young team. As far as playoff aspirations, I'm not going to go so far as to say that yet. I'm a little hesitant to put them there, but I think they're in one of the best positions as a team that they've been in a long time. So, they're well positioned in my opinion. I think this season will be another season to see some of the young pieces again continue to further develop. So obviously you got Cunningham there, give him a chance to get acclimated and start to mature a little bit in the league and learn how to play with these grown men, which is going to be different than what he's been used to in his college days. But I just think the Pistons are in a really, really good position.
As far as the playoffs go, because listen, you just got to make it to the play-in. You just got to be in 7 through 10 to be in the play-in for the playoffs, which is technically, from what it's being looked at as, that is a playoff, just like the NFL with the wild card. It's technically a playoff, right? I can think off the top of my head 4 or 5 teams that are already worse than the Pistons are at this point. You got the Cavs. The Wizards lose Russell Westbrook. They don't get any better. They actually get a lot worse. You have the Orlando Magic, who's always at the bottom. In the same conversation, we were talking about the Pacers. Who would be the 5th team? The Toronto Raptors. Because they lose all of their vets. They lose all of their, basically all of their talented players other than Fred VanVleet, and they're trying to find a suitor for Pascal Siakam. So right off the bat, that's 5 teams that they can potentially be better than this season just for the 10th spot to at least say you're getting to the play-in. Now you see potential, and you put yourself in the position that the Bulls put themselves in when they got Zach LaVine. Okay, now you go out, you get Vucevic. Okay, now you add in some of the young pieces around it. You draft a Kobe White, a Wendell Carter Jr. You know, you start building these pieces to attract the eye of Alonzo Ball or DeMar DeRozan. You know what I'm saying? So now you get some traction to what you're trying to accomplish. Now you have a sense of direction, which is something I haven't said it's about the Detroit Pistons in the last ever. So I mean, they have a sense of direction now. I'm actually excited. I'm not a fan. I'm just excited to see what happens next. I'm telling you, I'm not a fan. I got to see what happens this season, but I like what's going to happen, especially the Cade Cunningham and Killian Hayes backcourt. If they can learn how to coexist, you know what? I don't like that. Not coexist. If they can learn how to feed off each other, Detroit is going to be in phenomenal shape for the years to come.
Absolutely.